Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the OBR Roundtable for Week 14. The Cleveland Browns going up against the Baltimore Ravens here in Cleveland. My name is Ian McBride. I'm going to be your host for this evening, and we have Jake Burns coming up to talk about the Baltimore Ravens, how the Browns can stop them and move the ball against them on offense. We have Stephen Thomas to talk about the rooting list. We have Fred Greetham to talk about whatever he wants to talk about, but as with most of the roundtables, we are going to start with our insider, Brad Stainbrook. Brad, how are you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing just fine, ready to get started. So let's jump right into the injury report. Usually we don't have the full injury report yet, but we have a pretty decent idea on the people who are going to be playing and who are not going to be playing. So walk us through that.
Right, yeah. Harrison Bryant, tight end, second-year tight end. He's already been ruled out with an ankle injury. He will not be playing Sunday against the Ravens. Jordan Elliott, he's dealing with some knee soreness. He was marked as limited. He was a full participant yesterday, but again, limited today, but he looks to be okay. Tomorrow will be the telling factor, though, of course. Ronnie Harrison, he's limited with an ankle injury. Malik Jackson did not practice today with a knee injury. But Jarvis Landry, he had a knee injury. He's been dealing with a knee injury all season, as we know. He did not practice yesterday, but a good sign he did return today. Anthony Schwartz, I view Anthony Schwartz as very unlikely playing Sunday because he's been in concussion protocol for nearing 3 weeks now. Hopefully everything's okay on his front, but it's very unlikely, even if he returns in a limited role to practice tomorrow, that the team would throw him out there Sunday. J.C. Treader, did not practice with a knee injury. He was limited yesterday. This is becoming a routine for Treader and the Browns. It's probably an agreement where he's not practicing on Thursdays. And of course, David Njoku, Anthony Walker, and Jamie Gillen all are on COVID and COVID-19 reserve list. Walker and Gillen have zero shot of playing. But David Njoku, I wouldn't rule him out officially yet. That will probably honestly come tomorrow, but there's still a chance. And if you, as you guys know, David's been tweeting how he's asymptomatic and he feels nothing.
That's good to hear. Even if they can't play, always nice to hear that the symptoms are not severe for them. We know with Myles Garrett that this can have a lasting impact on people. So whatever gets them healthy, COVID is very serious. It's not just a football thing. So hopefully they'll be okay. Let's expound upon that. Jamie Gillen, one of the people listed there. I don't think Mack Wilson's going to be doing punting. He has the ability to, but I don't think they're going to rely on that. Any word on who they're going to bring in terms of punter?
Yeah, the Browns, of course, they learned of Jamie Gillen's positive test this morning, so they're scrambling around to try to find a vaccinated punter to bring in, and he has to be. I'm not just saying vaccinated just for the fun of it. He has to be vaccinated so he can clear protocols in time. Yeah. That isn't NFL protocols. One name I've heard is Dustin Colquitt, brother of Britton, who spent time in Cleveland and was a good punter for Cleveland, but they decided to cut him when Jamie Gillen was drafted. But yeah, Dustin Colquitt, I've heard the Browns have targeted him to come in and punt this weekend. It's not a done deal. There's nothing official to report, but the Browns do have interest in him, and I'd be surprised if they signed any other punter at this time.
Yeah, Mack Wilson had probably had some interesting practices. We had Charlie Hewlett, who was the long snapper. He's back. Mack Wilson was the backup long snapper. So I think he might have had a little bit of practice there, and then maybe a little bit of punting when we see Jamie Gillen goes down. We do have a projected lineup change, I think, that we've been talking about a little bit. We've alluded to it on some of our shows this week. Walk us through that, because I think you're the person where that information came from.
Yeah, guys. Jack Conklin, unfortunately, he came back, and then a couple plays into the game, he went down with that injury, and he's out for the year now. So the Browns originally was planning Blake Hance, and they took the bye week to really self-evaluate and decide what to do. And now they're leaning towards rookie James Hudson. He's been improving in practice. They're going to give him the shot. It's not for the whole season. They're not going to hand him the starting job for the rest of the season. But the rookie will get his shot, and he's going to start at right tackle Sunday against the Ravens.
Any other news that people need to know heading into the game on Sunday?
Nope, that is all, guys.
All right, well, stay posted to Rumor Central for any more news from Brad regarding that punter situation, anything about maybe the COVID cases coming out, seeing if maybe Njoku can play. Make sure you keep your eyes peeled to Rumor Central. Brad, thanks for joining us as always.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
And we are going to bring in Mr. Stephen Thomas at Brown's Mock Draft. Last week we actually did a mock draft, so for the first time, your name actually matched with the content this year, at least on our Twitch channel. And that was actually a lot of fun. I think that was something we're definitely going to do as the season goes on. But a little bit more about the present for the Browns in the future with the Ravens game coming up. We've said must win a couple of times this year. This is it. You lose this, a season is effectively over. Then you're at that point, you're just kind of waiting for the elimination to roll in. So thinking about the playoffs, you and Anthony Reinhardt of the OBR have been working on a rooting list to kind of guide people through who Browns fans should want to win to make the path to the playoffs the easiest for the Browns. So walk us through that a little bit. I think we got that on screen here.
Yeah, just real quick before we get into that, this is why people have been asking, why are they protecting Chris Nagar, on the backup kicker on the practice squad every week? They've protected him every single week. Well, this is why. A punter, you don't like it, but a punter can come in and with a day or two of practice, basically do his job. A kicker, it's so much timing with the holder and the snapper and everything. You would hate for a guy to have to come in a day or two ahead, and then maybe the game comes down to a game when he basically do his job. For those who've been wondering about that all season, this is why, because COVID is still a thing, and this is why they protected Chris Nagar. Yeah, last year we did the playoff rooting list, and it proved to be wildly popular, not in no small part because it was the first serious rooting list we had for like 20 years. So we decided to bring it back again this year. And like you said, Anthony Reinhardt joined me with some of the numbers. He came over from the nerd wing, the analytics wing, and showed the percentages of each game, how it will affect the Browns' chances in the playoffs as a whole versus the North and all that kind of stuff. And there's 8 total games, including the one that starts here in just a little bit this week, that we're going to keep our eye on. Just real quick, a couple of things he ran the numbers on this and gave them to me. They're in the article. And you know what? I should probably go ahead and post that if I have that here. I do have that. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the chat. But if the Browns win all 5 of their remaining games, if they run the table on their remaining games, a 91% chance to win the North and an even higher chance to get into the playoffs. So obviously that's the easiest thing to do. And people say, well, why do we need a rooting list? Just win. Well, yeah, of course. That's, of course, what we want them to do. But you'd like to have a safety net, a fallback position, just in case that doesn't happen. Now, if all 8 games this week go the Browns' way, which is unlikely, but if it happens, it gives them a 42% chance. Their chances jump all the way to 42% to jump into the playoffs. If all 8 games go against the Browns, if they lose, which again is wildly unlikely, gives them less than 5% chance to win the playoffs. So basically what you said, this is their last chance. It is the Alamo here, okay? McDonald's breakfast ends in 5 minutes. This is it, okay? There's no more chances. So let's just real quick start going over we'll start with the one tonight. Because that's the most immediate one, the Thursday night tilt, the Vikings against the Steelers. This is an easy one, as a lot of them are this week. You and I talked about this when we were prepping for the show. Almost all of the teams that we're competing against are playing NFC teams this week. So it's real easy to decide who to root for. A lot of times you'll get the Broncos against the Raiders, and they're both tied with you. So you got to choose. Right. You can make a case for either team, and it's hard to pick. And it's pretty easy for the most part this week. And tonight, I mean, even if it had nothing to do with the playoffs, I'm sure we'd all be rooting for the Steelers to lose. So it's kind of just goes right in our wheelhouse there. If the Vikings, they're 3-point favorites, or I'm sorry, 1.5-point favorites at home, and which I think they can handle it. It's going to be a war of attrition. I think the biggest issue for me tonight with the Vikings is Christian Darrisaw, their starting tackle, is apparently not going to play, and TJ Watt, as we all know, is having a year basically the same as Myles Garrett and Nick Bosa and the rest of them. He is just destroying anyone who gets in front of him. But if they can somehow find a way. They're not going to neutralize TJ Watt. You just don't do that. But if they can somehow find a way to minimize his impact, I think the Vikings have a good chance to win this game. So that's the first one that we want to have happen. If the Steelers, the Bengals both lose and the Browns can hold serve, it gives them a 21% chance to win the North. It jumps their divisional chances way up. So obviously those, as they usually are the most important games. Going to the Browns, I mean, none of the rest of this matters if they don't hold serve at home. If they don't handle their business, the rooting list is pretty irrelevant. And I think they got a good chance. And some of the numbers that Anthony put in the article today, if you click that link over in the chat, you can read all of these because they're in there. If they win just this game, nothing else, if just this win drives them up to 34% chance to make the playoffs, which is huge. And it gives them a 10% more chance to win the North. Just winning this game, just holding serve at home and handling your own business. So it's huge. I mean, like Brad said, with all the guys that they have out, it's going to be a challenge to find ways to create separation and create explosive plays on offense. But on the other side of the ball, the Ravens are starting a couple of guys that are, fourth and fifth corners. They're basically starting defensive backs like the Browns were in the playoffs last year. They're just decimated. So it's hard to see what's going to happen. But I really think if the defense has a game anywhere near like what they did last week in Baltimore, the offense should be able to put up 17 points. I just think that they're due to put up 17, 20, 24, something like that, which should be a way to win this game. Looking down on the southern tip of Ohio, this is another really important game for the Browns. The Bengals are hosting the 49ers. The biggest thing, and the 49ers are 1.5 point favorites on the road. And they usually say that as far as Vegas is concerned, home field advantage is anywhere from a 1 to 2.5 point swing just in itself, which means they're probably 3 point favorites, which is pretty good on the road. And I talked about Nick Bosa a minute ago. We all know that the Bengals are having a great year. They're having way better year than any of us anticipated. And, they've got weapons and they've proved they can beat anybody, but I think they can be beaten by anybody too, because they got taken to the woodshed last week by the Chargers. And the other Bosa did a lot of damage before he went out of the game. And that's the Achilles heel of the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow's getting beat up again this year. He's got a dislocated pinky finger on his throwing hand. T. Higgins is limited in practice. Most of their linebacking core is banged up to one degree or another and on the injury report. So if good Jimmy shows up and Nick Bosa can do what he does to the Bengals tackles, I think the 49ers have a really good chance of giving us some help in this game. And it's a big one, because obviously, like we said, they're a division rival. Now, the Browns already have one win under their belt against the Bengals, and they close the season at home with Cincinnati. So any tiebreakers are pretty much right in their own hands for the taking. But still, like we said, it's always nice to get help from somebody else so that it makes your job easier. I mean, why wouldn't you? Next game that I see, the Giants and the Chargers. This is the one I think is the least likely, but just a reminder, and Ian, I know you'll back me up on this. We're not here to tell you who's going to win or what might win. We're telling you who to root for. Okay, yeah. That's a different animal altogether. Can the Giants beat the Chargers? Yeah, any given Sunday, I guess. But you look at it right now, the Giants not only probably going to be without Daniel Jones, they're probably going to be without Mike Glennon. They might start Jake Fromm, who they signed off the Bills practice squad this week, which does not bode well for any football team. No. And when you're playing a team as good as the Chargers, it makes it even worse. Now, from the Chargers side, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, their top two wide receivers are both on the COVID list right now. Mike Williams has a chance to come off. Keenan Allen, as I understand it, does not have a chance to come off of that. And they also just today placed their starting center, Scott Quesenberry, on the COVID list. So if you're looking for glimmers of hope for the Giants to give us some help and pull this one out, that's it. You got a second-year quarterback who's very, very good, but working with a different center without his top two guys, his top two receiving targets. You never know. If they're on the road, if the weather gets windy and crazy, you never know what's going to happen. So that one's and the fact that we lost to the Chargers in that 47-40 game, that's a awful. Big tiebreaker that's standing in front of us. So we really need them to drop a couple of games. There's going to be opportunities for it, and we'll get to that here in just a minute when we talk about the Raiders game. The next one, also pretty easy to pick, the Buccaneers over the Buffalo Bills. I thought the Buffalo Bills, when they were right, were the class of the AFC, but they have been just as inconsistent as the Browns. I mean, they're having a very similar year to the Browns. I have lots of friends in Buffalo who are Bills Mafia, and they're like us. They can't figure out what's going on. Like they look great for a half, and then they look awful for a half. So, I mean, they lost to the Jags, for crying out loud. It makes no sense. So, but as of right now, they are still a full game ahead of the Browns. If you're one of Bill's Mafia, and my daughter's boyfriend is from Buffalo, super nice kid, and he's a Bills fan. it's tough to say you have issues and you need to work them out. Okay, go do it against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. I mean, that's kind of like a college team going, all right, we'll figure it out next week when we go play at Tuscaloosa. That's an easy thing to do. You know, it's a pretty tall order. So that's what we're going to be rooting for. And I think this one has a very good chance of going our way. The next one's interesting, and I know I'm going a little long on time. I'll try to get out of here so Fred can get in. The Lions are in Denver to play the Broncos. This is an interesting game. First of all, we got to root for the Lions to win 2 in a row. Can they do that? I don't know. I mean, they should have beat the Browns. They should have beat the Steelers. They did beat the Ravens, you know, if they hadn't gotten that gift. So they play everybody tough-nosed. They've lost 3 or 4 games on the last play of the game. So with the Broncos struggling at quarterback, you never know. I expect this to be like a 10-9 type game, but they're 8.5-point dogs, you know, whatever. And the weird part about this is, in the long term, we're going to want the Broncos to lose because we want as few contenders to win as we want. But for this week specifically, there's a scenario that we would need the Broncos to win. And if they do, we would win the tiebreakers and in a 3-team tiebreaker and get the 7th seed. So it's kind of strange because for this week, it would be better for the Broncos to win. But for the long term, we obviously want them to lose. So that one was a little strange. Another one that seems like a long shot, the Titans, who somehow have found a way to keep winning without Derrick Henry. Mike Vrabel's just doing an unbelievable job down there. That guy has that football team ready to play every single week. They're playing the Jaguars. Jags are the Jags. You know, the Urban Meyer experiment appears to be off to a horrendous start. Trevor Lawrence is suffering because of it. None of their young players are playing the way that we think they should. But, you know, they've won, 2 games? So you never know. Yeah. Like we said a minute ago, they beat the Bills. So you can never say never. But again, this one seems unlikely. And the Browns are 2 games behind the Titans. It seems unlikely they're going to lose enough anyway for us to catch them. But you never know. As long as it's possible, you still root for it. And then the one game this week that was sort of we're unsure, back and forth, the last one on the list here, the Chiefs and the Raiders. You can make a case, as we have said before, that they could still catch the Chiefs. You know, it's so discombobulated, so jumbled in the middle of the AFC right now that anything can happen. But the Chiefs have been playing very well. They honed the tiebreaker against us. So not only would we have to catch them, we would have to pass them, which means if the Browns were to go 4-1 and get to finish 10-7, the Chiefs would have to go 1-4. And that seems very unlikely. So it seems best to just concede that we're not going to catch them and have them beat up on one of the teams we're tied with for one of the wild card spots in the Raiders. Plus, here's the other reason that I think we want to win this week. The Raiders, obviously, they have the Chiefs this week, and then they come to Cleveland next week. We know that. So the Browns can handle the head-to-head tiebreaker in their own house if they take care of their own business. But after Cleveland, the Raiders have the Broncos, the Colts, and the Chargers. All 3 AFC contenders that the Browns are fighting with right now. So it seems likely that we're going to want the Raiders to win at least 2 of those games. And for them to win later, we're going to need them to lose now, if that makes sense, you know, so the math doesn't add up. So when you put all those things together, the numbers, if you read the article that Anthony put in, it doesn't really change much from the Browns percentages. Just either team wins. It's pretty much a wash. But when you step back and look at the long term and look at the big picture, it's pretty clear we're going to want Kansas City to hold serve and take Vegas down this week. So that's it right there. There's our rooting list for this week. Like we said, it starts here tonight. Skol, go Vikings. And then if the Browns don't hold serve at home on Sunday, none of the rest of it really matters. But there's some fun stuff to do, some scoreboard watching to do. It's always interesting to do that at this time of the year. And for 20 years, we've been scoreboard watching, hoping for losses so we can get a better draft pick. So this is infinitely more fun, whether it works out or not.
Yeah, and it's fun to talk about, similar to the draft. You know, a lot of the stuff we talk about with the draft ends up not mattering, but it's still, you know, it's a fun thing to talk about. But I think the big thing for the Browns is that Green Bay game. You can maybe lose that one. Everything else on the schedule, you're going to have to win. You're going to need to have that 4-2 in the division, and you're going to need to, almost certainly going to need to have that tiebreaker over the Raiders to have a chance at the playoffs. So
there's a shot of the playoffs at 9-8, depending on who the 3 are. Like you said, if it's, you know, some combination of Ravens, Raiders, Steelers, and Bengals, if they win 3 of those, lose the other one, and lose to the Packers, there are scenarios where they will win the tiebreaker at 9-8. But obviously, way better if they win 4. I mean, that goes without saying. You're absolutely right.
So, like you said, it starts this week. You got to beat the Ravens. You're at home. You should have beaten them last week. You just didn't get the offense. So let's see. They just lost their best defensive player that was left. He's injured too.
Yep.
So the opportunity is staring you in the face again, and you got to take advantage of it. So, Stephen, thanks for joining us. We will see you on Sunday, I believe, we won't see you on Sunday for the pregame.
That's right. Yeah, I'm traveling all day. I won't be here for the pregame, so I won't be back on the channel until Monday night.
Yes, we will talk about Monday night, hopefully talk about a Browns victory. Thanks for joining us, Stephen.
Go Browns. See you guys.
All right, and we are going to move right along and bring in our beat reporter, Fred Greetham. Fred, how are you doing?
Oh, just peachy. Doing great. How are you,
Just
Ian?
PG. I'm doing fine. Nervous about what's coming up on Sunday. Let's just give you the floor. What are you hearing out of Berea? Any talk about this COVID stuff? Any talk about anything you think is relevant?
Well, being out there today, obviously the news broke with the punter, Gillen, and Anthony Walker. I mean, Anthony Walker's a good player, and I mean, he's been active. He had 14 tackles against the Bengals. I think he had maybe 12 tackles against the Ravens, but it sounds strange, but I do think that's a position they can absorb. Not so much even that Jacob Phillips is coming back. I don't know how much he would be able to play, but I think this might speed it up. I mean, ultimately, I've said I think Joe Woods wants to play two linebackers, and in the big picture, all things being equal, they signed Walker to a 1-year deal. I think JOK and Jacob Phillips are who they have in mind to be the two linebackers. But with that said, Walker missed, I think, 3 games earlier this year. I think it was a hamstring, maybe it was a knee, I don't remember. But Malcolm Smith played very well, and so he will likely slide into that spot. I think Phillips will spell him, or they may just play extra DB. So the punting situation, I mean, Gillen's had a bad year, so he might have lost his job. Who knows? I know they haven't announced the punter. I mean, I think Brad has something in OBR and Rumor Central, but we won't talk about it since, it's hush hush at this point. But I guess they're just holding their breath that nobody else breaks tomorrow, because you think a punter, well, is it the kicker? You had the long snapper, had it, just got off that. So you do have 2 kickers. You have Nagar on the practice squad and you have McLaughlin. So I think they've kept separate. And then, with who knows, where this goes. Right now, you just have Hooper's your only real healthy tight end. They like to play 3. I think they're holding out hope that maybe Njoku would have back-to-back negatives so he could play. I don't really quite get how that all works because I know he hadn't had any symptoms up till at least yesterday. So anyway, so that's the COVID. As far as on the injury front, I think they're in pretty good shape. Jarvis Landry came back to practice. He gets a normal Wednesday off anyway. So he was back today. Malik Jackson has sat out the last 2 days, but he was doing that to some degree before the bye, and he played in the last Ravens game. I expect he'll be back to practice tomorrow, unless there's more to it. I mean, so you really only had 3 guys. I see Harrison Bryant being out with a high ankle. He's been declared out, and I'm pretty sure Anthony Schwartz is going to be declared out. He's still in the concussion protocol. Must have really took a ding to the head because that was back in the Patriots game. That was 3 games ago, and they had a bye. So he wasn't out there again today. So he's missed too much time, and unless he comes back tomorrow, they might be able to have him for limited action. But no, I think they're pretty healthy, at this point in the season compared to guys like the Ravens. The Ravens, they just keep winning even with all their injuries, and they don't have any excuses. And so I think it's on the Browns, this week to go out and overcome and win a game.
Yeah, it's you can't use the injury excuse when you're facing the Ravens. They have got hit worse than maybe any team in the NFL this year. So the Browns last week, they definitely struggled on offense on multiple fronts. We saw stacked boxes from the Ravens trying to stop the run, and then the Browns basically gave up on the run, tried to pass, and it did not work out. You've talked a little bit about it this week on other shows, but what would you do differently in terms of the Browns on offense to try and get this try to get the offense as a whole rolling?
Well, I mean, I've been on this two backs, Chubb and Hunt, for a couple years, basically. Right now, and this was before the injury of the tight ends. I mean, you took Harrison Bryant and David Njoku probably off the field, which are arguably two of your weapons. So almost by default, I would think you would almost have to use the two backs, maybe even find a way to use them with the fullback if you still want to use the fullback. But I just think you got to find a way to get your best backs on the field, your best players, I should say. I wrote that story early in the week about Chubb and Hunt. They haven't been on the field together, to my knowledge, all year. We asked Stefanski last year, and he said they were going to work on a package in the offseason. Well, if you're going to pull it out ever, this would be the time to do it, because you didn't do it the last time you played the Ravens, so they haven't seen it. And you're running out of time. To me, this is do or die. We've said that for 2 or 3 weeks, but this really is. You cannot lose a division game to the Ravens again and think you're still going to, have a chance to make the playoffs. So it's time to put up or shut up. Interesting today that Alex Van Pelt was asked about that, and he went back to the old tried and true line. We'd rather keep Hunt and Chubb fresh for the fourth quarter by alternating them. Now, if that was just a big smoke screen, I surely hope it was, because what in the world are you keeping them fresh for if you're done after this weekend? You're holding them for next September. I don't get that. So hopefully, I think they're going to have to put them both out there, and I'm not saying maybe every play, but a package where you got to put pressure on the Ravens defense to defend. Even if you flare both guys out in the screen pass, Mayfield can look one way. If he's open, hit him. If not, swing around the other side. Get the ball to him out in space. If nothing else, the defenders have to go with him. You're splitting out linebackers or somebody that's going to be assigned to cover them. And I just think if you can get the ball to them in space, I think that's a solve to solve the rushing problem. If they're stacking the box and you can't run the ball, how about trying running them with a jump start out in the open field? They tried the screen once to Hunt last game. That's when Mayfield fumbled it or double pumped because Hunt wasn't quite where he needed to be before, on the first pump, and he fumbled the ball and turned it over. But he was wide open. It had been a touchdown probably, or at least a 20, 30-yard gain, but they never tried that again. So my point is those two guys have accounted for over 15 yards, over about 40% of the offense, and that's alternating, mainly running the ball.
Yeah.
So why not? They're averaging 5.8 yards every time they touch it. So I think if you give them the ball, let them touch it, you have a much better chance to make something happen. So to me, you can go all day about, well, this hurts this area or hurts that area. Your receivers haven't been able to get open. I think both Hunt and Chubb are good receivers. So get them the ball and see what they can do.
Yeah, I think especially, considering the Ravens' struggles in terms of injuries in the secondary, just having those guys run out, get as many people as you can available to catch the ball, because you're going to have people on the Ravens who just learned the playbook this week, and there's going to be busts. You just have to take advantage of them. Any thoughts on the way the Browns defended Lamar Jackson? This was something you talked a lot about in the offseason. And they did about as good a job as we possibly could have hoped. Do you think that's something that they'll be able to do again this week?
Yeah, I mean, Joe Woods talked about that today. Yeah, they did do a good job. They contained him for the whole game. I think he had 68 yards rushing. Um, and he made 2 or 3 big plays. But in that game, 2 or 3 big plays were the difference in the game. In fact, that one big play to Andrews for a touchdown was the difference in the game. So they got to do better. I asked Woods today. I said, do you sometimes as a defense feel because the offense is struggling, you guys have to just go out and basically shut them completely down? And he said, no. We do our job, and the offense, we rely on them, but we saw the offense. I really do believe it's all in the offense outscoring the Ravens. The defense is doing an adequate, very good job. I mean, they caused 4 turnovers last game, and only the offense put up 3 points. So I think if they don't get cute, obviously the Ravens are going to make adjustments to try to spring Jackson. But this has been now a funk he's been in for a few weeks. The Steelers shut him down as well. They're having troubles on their offense. And so that's where I think you just maybe have a couple new wrinkles. I like the way he turned JOK loose, and I think that gave him confidence. Talked to him today, and I think Woods has much more confidence in him to turn him loose even more. And I think that if they put pressure on Jackson, don't let him sit back there and get comfortable. That's where he seems to hurt you. Keep making him get rid of the ball quickly. And I think, if they can have the same type of result as they had last week, I think the offense will be able to figure out a way to do something more and win the game. But the defense did a great job last time. I think that if Phillips can help a little, he could spell Smith, and he can chase Jackson. He was the one guy they had last year that could kind of chase the quarterback. And I think Delpit and some of the other guys, Hill's another couple weeks removed from his injury. And I just think, again, it's all hands on deck because there's no tomorrow you lose this game. So put it all on the table. Give him a couple different looks. He's prone to make mistakes. So I think the defense can do that. But I really do think it's on the offense to come up with some plan to stretch the field and put some points on the board and win the game.
Yep, it's going to be. I mean, if the Browns defense can repeat that effort, you got to think they come away with a win. Having 2 weeks here to prepare something to go up against this Ravens defense. So, Fred, any final thoughts before we let you go?
No, I don't think so. We'll see what they do tomorrow, but I expect them to be in pretty good shape. It'd be nice if Njoku could come back off, but hey, go out there and overcome that. Use what you have, use the weapons you have, find creative ways. Austin Hooper kind of alluded to them that they made some adjustments. So I'm kind of hoping that there's some adjustments that work.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us, Fred. We will see you on Sunday, I believe, for the pregame.
Sounds good. We'll see you.
See you then. All right, and to close out the show today, we are going to bring in our film analyst, Jake Burns. Jake, how are you doing?
Great, Ian. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So we usually go through and talk about the opposing team. We didn't get a chance to do a roundtable for the first Ravens game. So let's take that opportunity now. Let's go through the Ravens. We've already seen, quite a bit of them, considering we just played them in our last game. But let's talk about a little bit about what the Ravens want to do on offense to start.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how they'll attack this game, if they will do a lot of the same things that they have traditionally done. A lot of their basic quick hitters in the passing game, trying to get the football out of Lamar's hands as quick as they possibly can to try to eliminate the pass protection situation that they find themselves in. I know they're a little beat up, but for the most part, pretty good shape up front. Zeitler, Villanueva, Bradley Bozeman, Ben Powers, I think will be around in this one. And then I know McCarry was hurt. Obviously, Patrick McCarry is in for Ronnie Stanley. I thought the Browns played them pretty well the first time, double-digit pressures in, and obviously we know that they turned them over 4 times, 4 interceptions. So what they will try to do is obviously put you in tough bind, triple option based concepts, RPOs. And I thought the Browns did a really nice job with that the first time, defending those RPOs, because those are such a challenge for defenses in modern football to defend, especially when you mix in the element of Lamar, which turns, instead of an RPO, it really turns into triple option, because he is going to, be able to take off at any time. That makes it different. Most guys who can't run, say Tua Tagovailoa, for instance, in Miami, they are RPO heavy, but the difference is that they can't get a quarterback out in free space off of that RPO. So if it's ugly and mucked up, he has a chance to get out and run. That's what makes Lamar so dangerous. So I would say what the Browns will have to continue to defend, is Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews, two best offensive weapons, have been most consistent players for them. A couple of their higher graded Pro Football Focus players. Sammy Watkins gets some targets as well. We know that. But that's the extent of it. Rashad Bateman is starting to come along. Obviously, Rashad Bateman is a guy that we all liked in Browns Twitter, but he is starting to come along. Not quite where they thought he would be by this time of year. Obviously, the injuries had a pretty big setback for him. But that's the group that you have to focus on, especially Mark Andrews, because Mark Andrews made two of the downfield plays in the game that could have, that did swing in Baltimore's favor, obviously. And we know the John Johnson interception was just underthrown. And if that ball wasn't underthrown, then it's probably a touchdown over the top to Andrews at that point. So he loves to target Mark Andrews, and I thought Andrews had plenty of opportunities to catch the football. They did pretty well, but he is a guy I think you have to shut down if you're going to really, truly shut down Baltimore without the mistakes that Lamar made. Some of them were a little bit, I would guess to say, unforced. You have to be able to shut down, or at least take away, make uncomfortable Mark Andrews in the passing game, because he's really good, obviously. And the Browns didn't think they did a great job with him. I thought Lamar just missed him. But as far as rush lanes, I thought the Browns did as well as they have ever done with rush lanes and shutting down how Lamar loves to get out of the pocket, some of those things he's most comfortable doing. And then it helps to have an eraser on the second level who's a quick trigger guy like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who played 65 plus snaps in the game, which is necessary, right? So Anthony Walker, losing him will be tough, but I think Malcolm Smith is able to play in that game pretty successfully. I don't know if they'll actually activate Jacob Phillips, but he can be a guy that plays too. I don't know if they will, but if they do, he can play because he's a rangy player. Obviously can trigger and get sideline to sideline too, the way we like to see. So as far as Baltimore's offense, I don't really know what they can change. I think they're going to be RPO heavy, what they really traditionally are, and go from there. I mean, like I said, they've come off an emotional loss to Pittsburgh, as I'm sure you've talked about on this show already, and it's hard for them to kind of reinvent the wheel the way maybe the Browns are trying to reinvent themselves a little bit coming out of the bye week. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think it's going to be all too different. Their running backs, we know, are Devontae Freeman, and then Latavius Murray, both of which are well past their prime, not difference makers. If you present them a run lane, they will take advantage and get downhill and get some yards, but they are not J.K. Dobbins. They are not, some of the more dangerous running threats that Baltimore's had in their backfield, Mark Ingrams of the past for them. So that's nice. That's a relief, especially with all the talent or all the difficulty it is to defend their run game in general. On defense, the tough part here is that they do get Calais Campbell back. It seems like, I know he's missed a couple practices with an illness. I'm not sure if he missed today. And did he miss today's practice? I know he was off yesterday. But they should have Campbell back, but they obviously lose Marlon Humphrey. I know the Marlon Humphrey stuff is big. Obviously, I think it's a bigger impact on Baltimore's long-term success than it is in terms of this game, because I don't think they have any fear using Anthony Averett and Chris Westry and DB positions to still challenge the Browns. I know we're like, okay, maybe they won't play their traditional style, but it's like, what makes them want to get out of what they traditionally do? I know they're maybe a little less talented out there, and not a little less, a lot less talented without Marlon Humphrey, but there should be no fear to get in the Browns receivers' faces and make them uncomfortable, in my opinion. So I don't expect a wholesale change from Baltimore's approach in terms of getting up closer, playing press man, running with Browns receivers, making them uncomfortable at the line of scrimmage. I really don't expect a ton of that. And I think that's something that we should keep note here. I mean, as far as tendencies go for the Ravens, they're a 3-4-4 base. That's what they like to play. 4 linebackers, flexible linebackers, and then 4 DBs. They will also sprinkle in some 3-2-6. But again, how many of those guys do they have to even play with their defensive back injury situation? They'll stack the box. They love to walk what are called creepers down. So they'll walk those guys standing up, walked into the line of scrimmage to make teams uncomfortable and dictate pressure. They have gone to that 21% of snaps this year, 147 total snaps, 5th most in the NFL. They play a high volume of man-to-man, 3rd most man-to-man usage in the NFL, 179 snaps of man-to-man. They'll play middle of the field closed. They like to play cover 1 or cover 3 when they do go zone. 232 middle of the field close snaps, single high, 10th most in the NFL. They will, surprisingly enough, Ian, also bail off of what they like to do defensively, which is walk people down, sell the blitz, and then bail. They've gone 51 times just a 3-man rush, 7th most in the NFL. And then they've blitzed. They will also, this is what they try to do. Sometimes we'll blitz you. Sometimes we're going to bail. And that's what they try to counteract. And they've the 4th highest blitz rate in the NFL, 31%, 145 snaps. I don't expect them to deviate too much. I don't expect them to sit in zone and stay back and not blitz Baker Mayfield. I think their formula is the same formula they showed up with at home, which is, hey, we are going to get down in your face. We're going to make you think pressure's coming. And then sometimes we're going to bring that pressure. Well, quite often we're going to bring that pressure. And then sometimes we're going to bail and we're going to make the quarterback uncomfortable. We're going to make your protection uncomfortable. We still have Campbell. We still have Justin Houston. We still have Bowser. We're going to make you uncomfortable and get after you. And I expect that stuff to stay pretty much the same week to week. As far as their offense goes, they use Patrick Ricard and Tim Boyle a lot. So they lead the NFL in 21, 22, and 20 personnel. They use it a ton. So that's the second running back, usually a fullback in the backfield. 244 snaps of 21 personnel, 160 snaps of 22, and then 86 snaps of 20 personnel. They run shotgun all game, as we know. The most shotgun snaps, 95% in the NFL. 806 snaps. They're never under center. They use their deception off of that pistol look they like to run. They do love play action, though. They actually do lead the NFL in play action, 206 snaps. I expect that to remain high. Short drop back throws, I talked about earlier, Ian. They will continue to do their quick throw game, 315 snaps of short drop back throws, 4th most in the NFL. They like to run gap schemes, power, counter, duo, those things that are inside, block down, use a pulling guard, or they use their pulling, they call that a sniffer, where the guy's up into the line of scrimmage between the guard and the tackle, like in a tight wing position. They do that a ton too. They run gap percentage most in the NFL, only followed by Cleveland, 175 gap runs. And based on how often they're in the gun, they get light boxes more often than not, 112 snaps with a light run box, which is 6th most in the NFL. So that gives you an idea of who they are, what they like to do. The question then becomes, Ian, what do they do with this game? Do they change some of the things they are due to injury, or, hey, we just played the Browns, maybe we need to tweak things up? That is what we will all be watching closely. Again, I would be pretty surprised if they changed up who they are defensively completely, because even though they're limited in the defensive back grouping, they're not afraid of Donovan Peoples-Jones, a banged up Jarvis Landry. And I just don't think they want to change everything of who they are. I expect Don Martindale to still do what he does traditionally. Now, will the offense change? Will they go less play action? Will they run Lamar design quarterback runs a little more often and say less creativity, more we're gonna make you be a structure here, structure quarterback, in terms of you're either going to run the football or we're going to give you a quick throw opportunity and say we don't want you creating as much, having to feel like you need to get out of the pocket and be a performance artist here and just do the scheme. What's the saying? You're either a creator or a recreator, right? I think Lamar is oftentimes a creator, but they want him to just recreate the scheme to simplify a little bit. The turnover bug has really hit them of late. So I don't know. I don't know how much they're going to adjust. I don't expect them to adjust like crazy coming. Like I said, that Baltimore-Pittsburgh rivalry is really real, and it took a lot out of them. And I expect that they don't have a ton of time to change. They're probably just going to look at a lot of tendencies of their own, tendencies of Cleveland, and try to put a game plan based off that. It's tough to play a team 2 times in 3 weeks and have an opponent right in the middle of that an even bigger challenge, as you know.
Yep. I mean, you got to think that maybe there's, as desperate as the Browns are for a win, there's definitely got to be some desperation on the side of Baltimore, coming off, like you said, a very emotional loss to Pittsburgh. Marlon Humphrey is out. They've already had their bye. There's no break coming. You have to worry, a couple of losses strung in a row might, spiral into the end of the season for them. So
you got to look too at their scheduling. And I mean, they have Green Bay coming to Baltimore after Cleveland. Then they go to Cincinnati, who already thumped them in Baltimore. Then they host the Rams, and then they end with their, the Steelers rivalry, where you never know what happens. So this is why we've all been talking this week about Cleveland and still having everything in front of them, because Pittsburgh's schedule remaining is pretty challenging. Cincinnati's schedule remaining is not easy. So it's still very much an open window for Cleveland, who's obviously Cleveland still has a tough remaining schedule too. But if one of these teams can put it together, they're the team that's going to win this division. Everybody's pretty much square. Even though Baltimore's 8-4, the Browns win this game and they're a game back based on the Final Four for Baltimore. It becomes like, could get interesting.
You also give the Ravens, that would be their third loss in the division, so you would have an opportunity to maybe end up with that tiebreaker, 1-1 in the series between them, and then the Browns could be 4-2 in the division versus 3-3 for Baltimore. We'll do one question just to finish it off, because I think this is the big question as far as the game this Sunday. Mm-hmm. What does Baker need to do this week to put up more than 14 points?
Well, I mean, he's got to hit the throws that the scheme provides for him. I mean, I think he did an okay job at this against Baltimore the first time, but, it's a mixture of, if the scheme provides an open answer, take it, make the throw, make some tight window throws, give your guys a chance downfield, and don't turn the ball over, obviously, which, he didn't do the first thing he should have. There was an interception that was dropped right in the hands of a safety there, but I thought he played enough winning football. I think the Browns are going to, the $1 million thing here is, can they run for more than 40 yards between Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt? If they replicate that output, they're probably not going to win. That's just not who they are, and they can't rely on Baker to do it independently. So they have to, but it's collective. I'm not trying to pin it all on Baker. I think but to the crux of your question, take care of the football, take some shots downfield, take advantage of times when you do think your guys, DPJ, Jarvis, or even Hooper, have an opportunity one-on-one. Let them go make a play. Get some screen passes off in this game that are actually there. Don't fumble it. He did turn it over. I'm sorry, I take that back. Don't fumble it.
Actually,
and I forgot about that. And then, like I said, be opportunistic against these guys. But you to the base of the offense, you got to help them out. You got to catch the football all day, and then you have to put up more than 40 rushing. You got to get to that 100-yard rushing mark for the Browns season the rest of the way. Every game they have to run it well if they ever want to get to the 28, 35, 42-point range, as they have sometimes this year. They have to run it well. It's just how they're built. So, take as much pressure off Baker as you can.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts, Jake, before we get out of here?
No, not really. This is it though. I mean, I think I've said, whether my podcast or something else, backs against the wall like 7 times this year. It's been the weirdest, like, Undertaker meme season, where they're up and they're down and they're up and they're down. And it's like, oh, they're back from the dead. Well, if they lose this one, they're dead. I mean, this is a beaten up Baltimore team off of an emotional loss. Cleveland coming off the bye. They have no wiggle room in terms of the rest of their season. I mean, they can maybe lose one of these last 5 and sneak in at 10-7, but 9-8 is not getting you in. So you have to get to 10-7. You want to leave the wiggle room game for when you travel to Lambeau in a couple weeks. So, that's my opinion. This is the must-win game. If they lose this game, it is full on for me looking at how the future shapes up for them, because this season will be lost. So this is the 21 Super Bowl endeavor here for your Cleveland Browns. It is as important a game as any on the schedule. That they have played or that they will play. So whatever it takes, man, get it done.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us, Jake. Thanks for joining us, everybody in the chat. Hope you had a wonderful time. We will be here on Sunday. I believe that's a 1 p.m. game. We'll be here on Sunday to pregame that around 12 p.m. Eastern time. So feel free to join for that. For Stephen Thomas, for Fred Greetham, for Brad Stainbrook, thanks everybody for joining us today. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you on Sunday.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.